Okay, we are in the books of Kings and Chronicles. They cover the same events but from different perspectives, so they focus on different things. We're following the history of Israel and Judah. The last time we talked about, let's do Judah first. Joash was made king when he was 7 years old, and for the entirety of the high priest Jehoiada's life, Joash was a good king. He started the renovation of the temple to restore it and clean it up and get it all nice looking and everything. And he served God during that time. But when Jehoiada died, Joash began to backslide. He quit serving the Lord. He even murdered Jehoiada's son. And for payment, I guess you'd say, for that, a couple of assassins in his kingdom assassinated him. He died. He was not buried in the tombs of the kings. He was buried in Jerusalem, but he wasn't a good enough king for them to put him, sadly, in with the other kings, because he just wasn't that good after he quit serving the Lord. On the Israel side, Jehu was the king. When he died, his son took over, and he didn't really serve the Lord either. So when he died, his son took over, and his name was Jehoash. So it's very close. We have Joash in Judah and Jehoash in Israel. Hi. And he didn't really serve the Lord, but when he got into trouble, he knew where to go for help, and he called for help from the Lord. And the Lord rescued him. When a neighboring army attacked his kingdom, he yelled for help to God, and God helped him to defeat the enemy. But he still didn't serve God. He still continued serving the false gods, the false images. So he wasn't being a good king either, because with the serving of the false images comes a lot of sins that hurts a lot of people, including child sacrifice, unfortunately. But the title of today's lesson is Elisha's last prophecy and his last miracle. Elisha got sick, and this was the sickness that he was going to die with. We all get there eventually. And the king Jehoash of Israel heard that Elisha was sick and was dying, and he went to his house, and he began to cry and to weep because he was going to miss Elisha. He's kind of an odd guy. He loves Elisha. He calls on God when he needs him, but he serves the false gods. Really weird. But he went to Elisha mourning, and Elisha said, I want you to get a bow and arrow. So Jehoash got the bow and arrow. Elisha put his hands on Jehoash's hands and had him shoot an arrow out the window. And he said, this is a sign God will deliver you from your enemies, the ones that are plaguing your nation right now. Then he said, I want you to take a handful of arrows, and I want you to hit the ground. So Jehoash grabbed a handful of arrows, and he hit 3 times. And Elisha got mad. He said, you should have hit the ground 5, 6 times more. Because you only hit the ground 3 times, you will defeat your enemies 3 times. Had you hit the ground 6 times, you'd have wiped them out. But because you only did it 3 times, you're only half-hearted, you're not going to have a complete victory over your enemies. And that proves true. They only went 3 more times. After this, Elisha died, and they buried him. I'm going to assume they buried him in a cave. That was the common practice at the time. A lot of times they would bury people in caves and then seal the front of the cave. So they buried him in the cave, and sometime later, the Midianites would invade Israel. Come every spring, they'd go through and they'd steal all the food out of Israel and run off with it. So people were having a funeral. And they looked off at the horizon, and the Midianites are coming. They don't have time to finish their funeral. They need to run away. So they open up Elisha's tomb, and they toss the dead guy in on top of Elisha, and they run off. And the dead guy got up and ran off with them. He came back to life. If someone at one time counted all of the miracles that Elijah performed that are recorded in the Bible, and all the miracles Elisha performed, and counting this miracle of the dead guy coming back to life, Elisha performed exactly twice as many miracles as Elijah did. Now, if you go back to the beginning of Elisha's ministry, he asked God for a double portion of Elijah's anointing. So God gave him the double portion. He gave him the double portion of miracles on his life. I find that a very fascinating story. Toss the dead guy and he just gets up and goes away. Okay, let's sing our song. I'm having trouble with the tune. Do you remember the tune? Jesus wants me for a sunbeam to shine for him each day. In every way try to please